Welcome to Ren Behind the Practice. I'm Sophie Campisi, a holistic business builder and startup expert. Every week, I sit down with practitioners, coaches, and healers to explore what's really happening behind the scenes of building a holistic, mission-driven business. After hundreds of these conversations, one pattern has become impossible to ignore. Great work doesn't automatically become a great business. Not because people lack passion, skill, or dedication, but because building a business requires a different skill set than doing the work itself. And when no one teaches us those skills, we often spend years investing time, money, and energy into our businesses, only to wonder why the results don't match the effort. Together in these conversations, we explore the dreams, the uncertainty, the pivots, and the breakthroughs, and the blind spots that shape the journey of building a practice. Today, I'm joined by Jennifer Jakobsen, creator of Business Therapy. Jennifer works with high-performing coaches and service providers whose confidence has taken a hit, whether from a failed launch, a slow season, or a client experience that shook them. Her work is all about repairing those confidence fractures so that selling, creating content, and attracting clients starts feeling aligned again. Jennifer, welcome to the show.
Hi, I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Can you tell us a little bit more about your work? Who do you help? And what do they usually come to you for help with?
Yeah, so I am actually I'm a therapist. So I call the work that I do business therapy, and that term actually came from my clients themselves. They, after being in coaching sessions with me, they're like, Jennifer, you're sort of our business therapist. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's so crazy because I actually am a therapist. So that makes a lot of sense. So what I'm doing is sort of doing therapy on your business. But the reality is that you are your business. If you're a service provider, if you're a coach, if you're a healer, if you're a consultant, you are your business. So I'm not exactly doing therapy on you, but I'm doing therapy on some of the deeper, more internal pieces that get in the way when we're creating a business. Because what I have found over the years is that creating a business, much like you said, you can be amazing at what you do, but when you create a business, it brings up all of our stuff, all of our insecurities, all of our limiting beliefs, all of our thoughts. And yeah, some of those thoughts are not very helpful. And so that can really get in the way of us being able to share our gifts with the world, right? So I kind of fell into this whole idea of like, I want to really help business owners feel really confident in their business, especially after that setback. Because a lot of the people that I work with, the coaches, service providers I work with, they've had success in their business already. They're not starting from scratch. They've definitely made an impact, but something has happened. And a lot of times we don't even know what that thing is because it happens very subtly. It happens sort of quietly under the scenes. And it might be a setback such as, a launch that didn't go as we had hoped. It might be a difficult client or a slow season in business. And what happens is we experience, like you said, this confidence fracture. And so our confidence, the way that it used to be, we're not showing up the same way anymore. And so I help them repair that confidence fracture so that they're really like showing up in their business the way that they used to. They've got their mojo back. And when that happens, everything in business becomes much simpler and clients start to flow in. So that's really, in a nutshell, what I do.
After working with so many coaches, what's one pattern that you keep seeing that most people don't recognize in themselves?
Yeah, I think this is such a good question because there are so many different patterns that come up. And the patterns are really what we need to reshape and rewire because they start to become very automatic and comfortable, these patterns that people fall into. But I will say one of the biggest ones that I see is focusing on actions before beliefs, right? So the way that it works, the way that the human brain works is we have a thought, then we have a feeling, and then we take an action. And from that action, we get a result, right? So people focus very strongly on like, what actions am I taking? And if I'm not getting the right results, the results that I want, I just need to take different action, or I need to take more action. And the reality is, they need to take a couple steps back. And we need to look at our thoughts and our beliefs first. Because if our thoughts and our beliefs are positive ones, and I don't mean like positive and like think positive and everything will be great, but if you're looking at things in a healthy and I'm losing my words here, but as long as your beliefs are heading in the directions of the result that you want, that's where we need to start. We need to start like rewiring our thoughts and our beliefs for the results that we want. Instead of focusing on just taking the action, we have to look at the thoughts that are fueling those actions first, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. Like I wasn't always a business builder and a startup person. I do this by way of being a practitioner and coach for a decade or more and being in the holistic industry for 15 plus years. And so I have tons and tons of deep training on deep transformational work. And one of the things that I learned a very long time ago from one of my greatest coaches and mentors and teachers is one of my areas of expertise is a very niche pocket of the transformational world called ontology. It's like a nexus between linguistics, biology, and beingness, spirituality. One of the things that I learned in my studies with ontology is that entrepreneurship is one of the fast tracks for transformation. It is a deeply spiritual journey. It's a deeply
Mm-hmm.
transformative journey, and people aren't talking about it nearly enough. And people are still talking about it a lot. We have people like you and other people who are mindset coaches that are supporting people on the spiritual side. But even still, it's not talked about nearly enough as what I know it to be, which is like I guess the phrase I would use is like the what's so. It's just always going to happen. If you're an entrepreneur, you're actually going to be thrust on a very, very, very deep and fast paced, accelerated path of
Yes.
transformation. Then you have our pocket of the world, which is generally people who are already committed to transformation themselves. So they've already, they're exploring self help stuff, they're exploring transformational work as a coach or a practitioner themselves. So that's like already, like air quotes, the universe like knows. So we already get tested more than the normal because we need to be able to help the people that we're here to help. Then you add on entrepreneurship to it. It's like a double whammy. If you're already on this path and you're already committed to and devoted to serving others, you're already going to be tested more, right? Like you have to excavate more because you need to be prepared. You need to have less ego. You need to be all the things that you need to be a great coach, healer, support person.
Yeah.
Then you add on entrepreneurship, and people don't talk about enough that it's a given. It is a given that if you are on the path of entrepreneurship, it is going to be deeply, deeply, deeply personal.
Absolutely.
No one gets away from it. Again, it's just not talked about a lot in that way. So people think, oh, it's just me or this or that. It's a given. It's one of those things that just like gravity. It just operates one way. Entrepreneurship operates that way. And part of what I learned is because a lot of the stuff that you help people with, because you're going to be out of your comfort zone all of the time. You're going to be in situations where you have to produce a result that you aren't sure if you're going to be able to produce, right? Basically, you have to show up in beginnership over and over again, over and over again. You have to be ready for rejections and no's and all of the stuff that makes you deeply uncomfortable, deeply vulnerable. It's a given. There is no option to go through entrepreneurship without it. Yeah, it's not talked about enough.
Yeah, and I think what's kind of cool though is, even though it's this deeply personal journey, we have a choice in terms of how we look at it, right? And that's why I think it's so important to really get super clear on your thoughts and your beliefs, because honestly, like everything can feel really, really hard if you allow it to. It can feel really stressful, overwhelming. It can feel really heavy. And all you need to do is shift your thinking and your beliefs just a little bit, just slightly, and it becomes that much less gets overwhelming and stressful, you know? So as you're trying to figure it out and you hear a no, right, from a client, and you can look at that as, oh my gosh, this is this crushing, horrible, awful thing that just happened. I just they just said no. What does this mean about me? And you can go down that spiral, that rabbit hole, right? Or you can say, okay, that's amazing that they said no. Why did they say no? And so getting super curious, and instead of deciding like there's something wrong with you because you got that no, you can decide to get curious and say, okay, wow, they didn't want to work with me. I wonder what that was about. And even asking your potential clients like, okay, you don't want to do this right now. Tell me what that's about. Like what's holding you back? And when you're able to get curious, that personal development journey is going to start to really explode in such a amazing way because you're going to learn so much about yourself, you're going to learn so much about your clients, and it's going to just propel you forward in such an amazing way in terms of your success.
Yeah, I love that you said curious because it's one of the biggest things that I teach people when I work with
Mm-hmm.
them
Mm-hmm.
on the business building and the startup. Your job is to approach it with curiosity.
Yes.
If you can be anchored in a curious mindset, knowing that every single thing is a learning opportunity, everything is a data point, and you want those, you want to find out that data, you want to know why, because you can do something with that data when it comes to like, what do we do with everything that we're learning and making sure that we're translating that to the actual business model side. And curiosity, it is such a gift to be able to be anchored into that mindset of approaching things with a lot of wonder and a lot of curiosity
Yeah.
and the willingness to, like you said, all those things that I love that you just said about ask questions and learn and like, what is there for me to learn here? And what can I learn about myself? And what can I learn about my mission? And all of those
Mhm.
things.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
What's something the coaching industry gets wrong about confidence or mindset?
Yeah. I think that there's two different ways of going with that question because confidence is one thing, mindset's another. I think one thing that gets the coaching industry gets wrong about confidence is that it comes from just thinking positive or, just thinking that something good's going to happen and just sort of like pumping yourself up, being your own cheerleader, that's what confidence is. And confidence actually comes from getting out there and doing the things and learning, like we've been talking about, learning from those things. But confidence doesn't come from just thinking positively. You have to get out there. And one thing that I've learned, which I think is an even more powerful concept that I've been trying to really adopt in my own, in my own business, in my own personal life, is instead of striving to be more confident, I really want to strive to be more convicted because the difference between confidence and conviction is confidence requires evidence to build your confidence. Conviction is it's kind of that more spiritual realm where it's believing that you can do something and that something is possible for you even without evidence. And so that's really where I want to live because I try new things every day. And as entrepreneurs, we try new things every day and we do things and we need to believe that we can do it even if we've never done it before. So that's my answer as far as confidence. As far as mindset goes, oh boy, we'd need a whole episode just on that. I
Yeah.
think I think mindset is there's a lot of different ways of looking at mindset. I think, again, it's like, I think a lot of people think, well, just think positive and just, repeat something great to yourself, repeat a mantra, repeat a sentence over and over again. But the truth is that mindset is much, much deeper than that. Mindset is usually rooted in a pattern that we've come to just we just do it. It's just like driving a car. Like you go from one place to the next, and a lot of times you don't even remember how you got there. Like if you're driving to work in the morning, you just go to work. You don't have to think about it a lot. And that's a lot of what mindset is. Mindset is just how we've been operating for a really, really long time, the way that we look at the world, the way we view things. And in order to shift our mindset, we can't just repeat a mantra. It's a lot deeper than that. We have to get to, okay, where did this pattern start? And how can we slowly rewire it? Because your brain doesn't want to change. Your brain wants to do what it's always done because that's how brains work. So we have to do it. It's a very clinical process, and that's what I do in the work that I do. That's the work that I help people with, is really like rewiring our brains, but in a very clinical way, not in a, just go and think positive kind of way. It's like getting to the root of the problem slowly but surely, shifting these patterns, these limiting beliefs, and stepping into a completely elevated identity. And it's the identity that's already within you. It's just been covered up by these patterns and these negative beliefs. So it's a very clinical process, I think, and it's a lot more involved than people think it is.
Totally. I mean, I'm thinking that maybe one of the biggest myths in my work might also be one of the biggest myths in your work, which is if I just keep showing up, it's all gonna work itself out,
Yeah.
If I just keep showing up, I'm so devoted to this work. I know I'm meant to be doing this work. If I just keep showing up, it's all gonna come together. I hear that all of the time.
Yeah.
And I think what people don't realize, there's two levels to that. Like, no, it won't. But also, yes, it will. But what are all of the intervening things that are going to happen in between that and when it does come together? And that's not always acknowledged because it will not all come together if we keep doing the same things over and over and over again, whether it's on everything that you just described with mindset and all of our blind spots and everything that's holding us back and our limiting beliefs and all that. And also on the strategy side, for me, it's like, it will not work if you keep doing that over and over again, especially if you keep doing the things that aren't working, right? It's like, we can't see that, but if things aren't working for you right now, I learned this amazing thing at a workshop like so long ago. I was living in New York at the time, and this diagram was amazing, but it showed a diagram of like what we know and then what we don't know. Whereas like what we know is like a tiny bit compared to what we don't know. If what we already knew was going to work, it would already be working. So even in business, so let's just take that small thing. This applies everywhere in life, in your relationships with your partners, with your children, if you're having a breakdown with finances, wherever it is. Let's just talk about business. If what you knew already was going to work, it would already be working. So if it's not working, that means you have to come out of that bubble of what you already know, and you're going to have to learn something new in some way, shape, or form. Entrepreneurship, unfortunately, fortunately, but unfortunately, that means you're going to have to be doing that all of the time. And that can be hard. And I understand that that's hard, but this is something that I wish was talked about a ton more. People just understood the neutrality of it. Nothing's wrong. You didn't do anything wrong, nothing's wrong. But if what you already knew and what you were already trying was going to work, it would have already worked, because I guarantee a lot of people, I mean, this is one of the biggest myths that I find with people that I talk to on this podcast and just in general is women in general are so good at being hard on themselves. So it's very, very easy to just assume I'm the problem.
Yes.
I'm not being consistent enough. I'm not being X enough. But it's not only is it not true, but it can be kind of a cop out a little bit, right? It's like, I don't know. What if that wasn't true? What if you are already great and amazing and you're doing enough? You're just not doing the right things, right? Like, what if there's a shift in mindset or a shift in strategy that's actually needed? But what if it wasn't just the simple blanket, like, if I was just more consistent, if I did more, I need to do this better. It's like, I don't know. I rarely, almost never. I mean, I talk to hundreds, thousands of people. Maybe never has the problem ever been like, you're just not doing enough.
Never. I agree.
You're not enough. You're not good enough. The quality of your work isn't. No, like it's never that. But it's just really easy for us. Maybe that's a through time thing. We tend to be so hard on ourselves, or we tend to like assume it's us first before, or maybe it's also a quality of us doing the type of work that we do, and the fact that we generally are very empathetic and empaths and all of the qualities that make humans great. We tend to have them, but I think it also, the shadow side of that is it can make it really easy for us to beat up on ourselves.
Yeah, so true. So true. I agree 100%. I think, yeah, I think as coaches and healers and, whatever, it's like the thing that makes us great at what we do is also the thing that makes us really hard on ourselves. And it makes us really, yeah, come down on ourselves a lot when things aren't going as we want them to in our business. So, yeah, it's so true.
Where do you think mindset ends and strategy begins when it comes to entrepreneurship, solopreneurship, the women that you work with and see, and the patterns that you see, and the blind spots that you see?
Oh, I love, love, love this question. I think they work hand in hand. I think that any strategy can work and work really, really well if your head is in the right place, if your mindset is in the right place. And I don't even know, like, what does that mean in the right place? Like, basically, if you've got a growth mindset, if you've got that curiosity mindset, if you've got the mindset, like, I just know that conviction mindset, right? Like, I know this is going to work because I know that I've got my back. And even if it doesn't work, I've got my back either way. And I am going to keep going. I'm going to keep pushing forward because eventually it will work if I continue to be curious, if I continue to be self-aware, if I continue to look at how are my thoughts affecting my strategy. But if you come into any strategy with, again, I'm at a loss for words, like what that mindset is. It's the mindset like, I know I'm enough and I can do this. If you come into any strategy with that mindset, that strategy will work. And even if it doesn't work, what will happen is you'll think to yourself, okay, this is a lesson. This is information. And no matter what is happening, I know I can figure it out. And I'm going to figure it out, right? So it's like, but if you go into a strategy and you're like, oh, maybe this will work, maybe this won't work, I don't know, like, nothing's worked in the past, so it's probably not going to work. If you come into it with that sort of attitude and mindset, chances are it's not going to work, right? So any strategy can work. There's nothing, I love that neutrality kind of perspective that you take. Like, anything can work. You just have to believe that it's going to work. And you have to have that positive, like, again, all the words, like, it's more than just positive. It's like believing in yourself, believing that you're worthy, believing that you can create something even if you've never created it before. And just having that sense of, yeah, like, I can do this. Conviction, confidence, whatever you want to call it, anything will work for you. And nothing will work if you don't have that belief in yourself.
Yeah, I love that you answered it by saying that they really work hand in hand, because I agree with that. I think that's absolutely spot on. And one of the things that was coming up in my mind as you were speaking, I talk about, or I use the metaphor of gardening when it comes to strategy and approaching it, air quotes, the right way, approaching strategy the right way and how you build your business. And one of the things that was coming to me as you were saying that is like, mindset is almost like the fertile ground that you're planting in. So it's like if it's dry and barren and there's not nutrients in there, it's like you can put the seeds in, you can do the work, but you're making it very difficult for anything to grow. Like if that's the
Yes.
foundation, if that's the versus the mindset is, using that metaphor, it's you have the soil and it's nutrient dense and you add the compost and it's fertile ground. And then when you plant, now I'll add to it, I do think that there are some strategies that won't work long term, when it comes to the strategy side. Like there is a process of building in the right order and doing things right, so you're really set up for success long term. But when it comes to what you're saying, it's that mindset, it's like that fertile ground. Like you can put the right strategy in there, but if it's a barren ground, like you're
Mm.
not setting yourself up for success. It's going to be hard. It's going to be really hard. It's going to be that difference. I mean, I guess this comes back to just transformation work in general. The difference between things being hard and having like unnecessary suffering,
Mm.
or them being harder than they should or harder than they
Yeah.
have to be. Like you have a choice. Things will
Yeah.
always be hard. We want them to be hard. That's what has us grow. But it doesn't have to be unnecessary suffering. It doesn't have to be harder than it should. We don't have to like add unnecessary friction to our process.
Yeah.
Last question before we wrap up today. If you could change one thing about the way coaches think about building their businesses, what would it be?
I think it's just what you said. I mean, there's a lot of things that I think we need to change about how we think about our businesses, but I think what you said was really about that it's going to be easy. Like it can be easy, but it's not going to happen overnight, right? Like you have to put in the work, and it doesn't have to be like more work and hard work, but you have to know that like you're constantly testing, you're constantly trying new things. And like that, that diagram that you said, where there's so much that we don't know. And so we need to be open to growing. We need to be open to learning and looking at things in a different way. And that's what I love so much about mindset, is because anything that happens, any situation can be looked at in many different ways. And the reality is you get to choose. You get to choose how you want to see any situation, going back to, when a client says no on a sales call, like you can look at that as, okay, I suck. I'm awful. I'm never going to be good at this. I'm a failure. You can choose that if you want to. Or again, you can get curious and you can say, okay, wonder what that's about. And so it's never going to be easy, but if you're open to learning, if you're open to growing, if you're open to seeing things from a different perspective, you have so much, your chances of being successful are so much greater. But if you decide that you're just not going to be open, you're just going to be very closed, very fixed mindset, it's a choice. It's a choice that you're making. It's just a decision that you're making. And if you decide that you want to be empowered to be able to see things in a more helpful way, you get to be empowered in that way.
Jennifer, thank you so much for joining me today to have this conversation. And for those of you who are listening, if any part of this resonated, you're in the right place, please reach out. I want to hear from you. And if you want to reach Jennifer directly, the links to her Instagram and Facebook group, the Successful Coaches Collective, are in the show notes. Thank you again, Jennifer. And to everyone else, thank you for listening. And we'll see you for the next episode of Ren Behind the Practice.